Well, welcome back, everybody, and welcome to my office here. What I'd like for us to touch upon in this brief lecture is moving an idea from being general to specific. And one way to think about this is increasing the level of specificity. And another term for this in writing is development. So anytime that you see on a paper comment or critique, you need to work on your development. What that means is that your idea is remaining general and it's not being turned into something specific. In other words, the level of specificity should be increased. So I know you're thinking, well, hey, Mr. K, how about an example? Okay, here's an example. Bad behavior in a child. Now, when you hear that example, right, your mind automatically starts to work with take that idea and then it starts to try to paint a picture of it. So when you hear bad behavior in a child, it's really fuzzy, it's really foggy. And if I was to poll everyone in the class to ask what's in your mind when you hear that, chances are I would have, for however many students, each person would give me a different descriptor because bad behavior in a child is really general. Now, how can I move from that general idea to specific? How can I increase the level of specificity? We do that by asking questions. Now, please remember, never ask the reader questions. Instead, what the writer should always do is ask him or herself questions, and then the answers go into the show sentences, those supporting sentences, and those hold up the tell. So, bad behavior in a child. Who is the child? Is the child a boy or a girl? How old is the child? What is the child doing? Why is he doing it? Or she? Where is this happening? Right? So we have all of those questions that have to be addressed by the writer before we can work on an effective level of specificity. So then that could be turned into something like, I was in Walmart yesterday afternoon at 2:30 after I got done teaching my classes, and I was in the gardening section getting some flowers to put in my flower beds in the front yard when I saw a child from across an aisle who was jumping up and down and screaming. And this little boy, who I would guess to be maybe 5 or 6, when he got done jumping up and down and screaming, he grabbed his mother's leg and started to pull it to try to drag her out of the gardening section, because I could tell that this little boy clearly didn't want to be in the gardening section, and I'm guessing that he wanted to be in a different part of Walmart. And he continued to pull his mom's leg, and when that didn't work, he went back to yelling and screaming, and then he started to kick the bottom shelves there in the gardening section and ended up kicking a hole in a bag of Miracle-Gro fertilizer, and then all the blue Miracle-Gro fertilizer spilled out over his shoe, and he continued to kick it, and then it's emptied out into a little pile, and then his mother dragged him out of Walmart for some, I'm guessing, discipline in the parking lot. Now, what did I just do? I created a story, and inside of that story there were lots of effective details that were specific. So I increased the level of specificity. I moved an idea from being general to specific. I developed that idea. Now, a lot of people are not used to communicating in a high level of specificity. Reason being, we like to keep people out of our business. And, that's perfectly understandable as we go through our day-to-day interactions. It's natural for us to have a bubble, and we only let certain people into our bubble. An effective writer lets people into the bubble without that person being asked. So always, always remember, don't have a bubble between you, the writer, and the reader. Never have a bubble. You should welcome the reader into your writing. And we do this by increasing the level of specificity. Now, this can happen in many, many different ways just by dropping key details in. So, for example, I could grab a commonplace object off my desk, right? A stapler. Now, when you say stapler, right, everybody can see that. But if you were just to add a couple details to stapler, then that picture would become clearer and you would increase the level of specificity. This stapler, as you can probably tell, is over 20 years old. How can you tell? It's worn. I've pressed it, stapled so many papers that I've worn the paint off the top of the stapler, right? Another example, instead of saying whiteboard marker, right? Everybody knows that, but yeah, you can probably say, well, hey, Mr. K, what color is it? The red whiteboard marker. So just by adding little details like that, just by slowly increasing the level of specificity, your writing can really, really become lively. Now, a wonderful way to help to increase the level of specificity and to have your writing really have some snap and pop to it is to always write with action verbs. That's something to remember and to write down. Did you write it down? Always write with action verbs. Make sure that the subject of your sentence is the actor. In other words, it's doing the verb. Don't write in the passive voice. That's an easy way to pop into your writing, is to have action verbs. Have the subject of your sentence actually be doing the verb. Avoid the passive voice. Also, when you're layering your example with details, try to come up with details that appeal to the reader's senses. Now, as human beings, we have two primary senses, sight and touch. Human beings, we love to see things and then we love to touch them. And a quick little side note, this is why Apple, the company, is so effective. Every product that Apple has, phones and iPads and the Apple Watch, right? All those different products, they look good, right? They look good even before they're turned on. Then the interface itself, that visual screen, is top notch, and then we're allowed to touch, right? We're allowed to swipe and tap on it and pinch. We're allowed to do all that stuff. That's why Apple is so effective, right? So sight and touch, those are our primary senses. So a lot of people, when they write, they'll put in details that appeal to those primary senses. But remember that we smell, we also hear, and we also taste. Now, so as we go through our day, it's a wonderful thing to do would be to drop in some senses, right, that appeal to those, some words that appeal to those other senses. For example, you could have a paragraph and you're talking about going for a walk with a friend, and then you could say, the smell of fresh cut grass, the roar of a lawnmower, right? So everybody's familiar with the smell of fresh cut grass as well as the sound, the roar of a lawnmower. So anytime that you can drop in some key sensory details like that, it's a wonderful way to improve the specificity of your writing. And again, when we move from general to specific, this is how we work on the development of our ideas. So again, anytime you see a comment or a critique that you need to work on the development of this idea, this example that you have. What that means is that the example is good, but you just need to push it further and to increase the specificity. Easy ways to always have action verbs. Always layer it with details and then try to work in details that appeal to all of the different senses.